and it's very helpful to make a distinction between types of psychopaths. There is a primary psychopath, there is a secondary psychopath, and there is the dark triad psychopath. Now, the primary psychopath, which I also call the Cleckley psychopath, because it's first been described extensively by Harvey Cleckley. This is the kind of guy who is all over the place. He has no impulse control. He's defiant. He's contumacious. He hates authority and authority figures. He's reckless. He's ruthless. He's callous. He's relentless. He's a nutcase, in short. And that's the kind of psychopath who gets in trouble all the time. And that's who end up in prison, and the psychopaths who end up as chief executive officers of Fortune 500 companies, they're not the same type of psychopath. Now, before we come to that other type of psychopath, secondary psychopath is essentially a borderline. We believe that most people diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, when they are subjected to stress, to anxiety, especially abandonment anxiety, when they endure narcissistic injuries, because most of them are grandiose, they devolve, they become secondary psychopaths. These are psychopaths which maintain a sense of empathy, full-fledged empathy, and have access to emotions, negative and positive. So there's a primary psychopath, it's emotionless, empathyless, nutcase, lacking in impulse control, all over the place, etc., etc. Secondary psychopath who cannot regulate her emotions. She has dysregulated emotions, has labile moods, is hypervigilant, anticipates rejection and abandonment, can't stand it, develops anxiety, is under enormous stress, subjected to narcissistic injuries all the time, and so on, and then she becomes a psychopath. And she acts as a psychopath, but still maintains her empathy and feeling. And there's a third type of psychopath. It's a member of the dark triad. Now, the dark triad is a set of traits: narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. And it is the Machiavellian element that endows these psychopaths with the capacity to plan ahead, with the capacity to anticipate the consequences of their actions, and with a lot of impulse control, and the ability to be pro-social when needed, put together people to work towards a common goal. So these are the kind of psychopaths who end up being politicians, or senior corporate figures, or clergymen, or people who work with other people. The same thing happens with covert psychopath. Covert psychopath suffers in silence, is patient. It's an act. He's play acting. He's never himself. Covert psychopathy is an extreme form of self-denial. And of course, this generates or engenders a lot of internalized aggression and resentment. The covert psychopath is rarely defiant or reckless like the primary psychopath or the secondary psychopath who acts out. These behaviors are very rare in covert psychopathy. On the very contrary, he appears to be stable, he appears to be sagacious, he appears to be wise, he appears to be reliable. You can rely on him. He gives you a sense of confidence, and he maintains this facade in the very long term, sometimes for decades. Whereas the primary psychopath, the secondary psychopath, the borderline in the secondary psychopathic phase, the narcissist in the antisocial phase. Whereas in all these clinical cases, recklessness is intimately linked with self-gratification, novelty-seeking, thrill-seeking, risk-seeking behaviors. In the covert psychopath, the recklessness, when it makes a rare appearance, the recklessness has nothing to do with novelty-seeking, thrill-seeking, risk-taking, self-gratification, nothing to do with it. The recklessness is a manipulative Machiavellian tool. It's an instrument intended to induce changes in behavior in people around the covert psychopath and to ensure favorable outcomes. In other words, it's an element in the covert psychopath's self-efficacy.